All right, welcome to Unit 3, Uncovering Your Mission. And in this section, we're going to be diving deep into what you really care about and some questions that are going to uncover a little more of who you are. And I want you to give yourself permission, give yourself space and time to answer these. And sometimes it's good to, when you answer these, let that first thing come to mind and that first thing to come out, even if the next thought is, I can never do that, right? All right, so let's jump into this. Let me share my screen. Share. All right, so clues to your mission. First question, what causes or issues are you most passionate about? What are those things you care about? What are those things that maybe upset you? Really write those out. What causes or issues are you most passionate about? Let me share a story. So before I was a coach, I was doing IT work. And anytime I go to a party or have a conversation or be in a networking environment, people would be sharing their story, and people would tell me things, and then they would share. I'd love to do something like run a half marathon, but I can never do that. And as soon as they said that, this little inspiration inside of me, this little passion inside of me said, I bet you can, but you're just not letting yourself or giving yourself permission. Now, back then, I would say in a really smart ass way, not with that attitude, and that was making them wrong, and it's not effective, right? Because it put them in the defense, and it was fun and kind of jokey, but ultimately it's not empowering. And when I really look back at my life, that's one of the commonalities of like things that I not decided, but that I was passionate about. It was like I was, really out there to lift other people up. I didn't realize it. And I was letting humor get in my way of really empowering people. So what are those causes or issues that you're really passionate about? I've got a friend in Chicago, and she's really passionate about empowering other women. So much so, she went to Washington, D.C. and was part of protests and standing up for women's beliefs and women's rights. And that's awesome. And so now she gets to bring that into her career. And she knows this, right? It's very clear for her. So what are those things in your life that you're really passionate about, or that might even like take you off, right? List all of those out, right? And going through this section, this unit, and the course overall, I want you to be listening, paying attention to the common threads that you're going to be able to start to pull out. They'll get clearer and clearer as you go through this, okay? So the next question, what do people tell you about yourself that you might take for granted or come really easy, but others might find it really valuable for them? So you find it valuable, or they find it valuable, but you really take for granted because it's so easy. That just don't tell me I'm good at that. Like that's whatever. I don't spend any time on it. That's one of your superpowers. For me, it's people. It's training, teaching, and it's really easy for me to take complex concepts and ideas and make them easily understandable. And I never really realized this about myself, until other people told me that. I was speaking one day at a church, and one of the members said, I really like how you articulate, and I really like how you share your message. It was just really nice and refreshing. And, one of the beliefs I got about myself is that I don't speak up enough, and that I'm hard to understand or whatever. And so that was really refreshing to hear that something that comes naturally to me that I honestly need to practice more um, is something that other people admire because it's really not easy for them. So, what is it about you, you know, that you're really, um, you take for granted, but other people tell you you're really good at? List down everything. And if you can't come up with anything, this is the time to make phone calls to your friends, neighbors, and ask them and get that different perspective because we're in here 100% of our life, but we're hardly ever on the other side looking back and really seeing who other people see in us. Okay. Um, so let's jump into the next question. So, if others come to you and you're the wise man or woman and you're to bestow on these people special wisdom, special expertise, what would you like to pass on to them? What is that? What's that thing that you know that you think other people don't? What is that? Write those down. Those are some of the golden nuggets that you probably have yearning in you that you want to get back, right? So let's go into question 3. This is kind of in the same realm, just a slightly different angle. What 3 gifts of wisdom about life would you give to those that come to you? You know, you only meet these people maybe once and they're like, tell me 3 things that I could never live without, that you just have to tell me, or something like that. What are those 3 things? You know, look for the commonalities where you're sharing that a lot in your life. What are they? List those out here. Next question. What do you complain about the most? And is that something you'd want to do something about, right? What is the thing you complain about the most and do you want to do something about it? The catch, or the kicker is, do you want to do something about it or do you just want to complain about it? Think about, what if Martin Luther King didn't take on the duty of becoming a leader of the movement he did? You know, he really cared about that and he wanted to do something about it. And so he did. And he made a huge difference. And all it took, you know, his moment in the world was changed when someone asked him if he wanted to be a leader in that organization. And it was like, hey, do you want to run this movement or run this group or organization? He said yes, because he cared about that. And he was, you know, he really wanted to make that difference. So what is it for you that you know, that you're complaining about? Maybe you don't complain about to other people, but you know it's something you want to make a difference in. All right. Next question. What are the 5 most important lessons you've learned in your life, career related or not, right? If you're a new mother, new father, and now you understand that life is really precious, whatever that is, it doesn't matter, right? Like, just, this is all about brainstorming. So what are those 5 most important lessons you have learned in your life, right? Well, one of mine is money is just a tool. It used to be an idol for me almost. Not almost, it was. And now I realize, like, people are the most important. And happy people are the most important. So what are those 5 most important things you've learned in your life, your lessons? Another question. What makes life worth living? Why do you get up in the morning? Now, if you don't have an answer for this right now, that's totally okay. And with any of these questions, if you're unable to answer them, come back to them, right? So what makes life worth living? What is it? Next question. What do you want your life to stand for? What do you want people to be sharing about you when you're no longer here, right? There's only a few people out of all the billions that are really, really remembered by most of society. It doesn't mean that anybody's value is less, but for the most significant, like Jesus Christ, like Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Mother Teresa, like they took a stand for something. Now, I'm not saying you have to take that level of stand in your life, but what if you did? What direction would that be in? Maybe it's just for you and your family, and that's enough. Or maybe it's for you and your community, or you in your city, or you in your country, or you in the world, whatever it is. What do you want your life to stand for? What is that? And is your career aligned towards that? Because if it is, you're probably going to have a lot of fuel and inspiration to get out of bed in the morning. Next question. What are your special gifts and talents? Now, I'm going to ask some questions multiple times throughout these. And that's because I want you to see and experience these questions from different angles. And just write it out. What are your special gifts and talents? Because sometimes we ignore those and we don't think they're very valuable. And the more you be able to realize them and play towards them, the better off you're going to be, right? And the last question in this one is, what is unique about you? What is unique about you? For me, now this is just really random. I have 2 small baby teeth right here. Can you see them? Yeah, they never fell out. It means nothing about my career, but it's unique about me, right? I just want you to brainstorm inside of this. One of the other things that's unique about me is I've taken a lot of risks and lived in a lot of different cities. And I love adventure, and I love just doing a lot of different things. And so that's given me a lot of knowledge, right? There's also some I guess you could say negatives about, doing a lot of different things, but it's given me a lot of experience too. And that brings a lot of uniqueness and a lot of roundedness in my life, right? I've also been chased by a goose and attacked. That's really random, but it's unique to me. So I want you to know these things because as you go through this process, things that you think don't matter may just really matter, I'm probably not going to put that I've been attacked by a goose on my resume, but it might make for a fun story during an interview or something like that where I'll be more memorable, right? So, all right, so what is unique about you? That's the question. Now, let's jump into the next session. Next section, what risks would you take, right? All right, so this is a clarifying exercise of what risks would you take in your life towards what you want and to help create clarity for that, okay? So, for me personally, when I made the choice, I looked at my life. I met with a life coach several years ago, and she looked at me and she said, I can tell you're not happy. And I can tell you're using your big paycheck to impress people. And that was really hard for me to understand and for me to get. And I couldn't blame anybody else. I was the person doing this. And here's why I'm sharing that. It's because in that moment and the moments after of having this truth told to me, I realized that it was okay to risk me going out on my own and doing something that I really wanted to. And at that point in time, I risked my 401k. I risked my life savings. And now I realized it saved my life because I was using money to impress people. So, what are those things that you would risk because of X, Y, and Z? What are those things? It doesn't have to be a physical danger. I'm not really talking about those things here, but you can list those out to help create, cultivate ideas. Would you risk your life to save your kids if they're drowning? I bet most of you would say yes, right? Because their future is worth it, right? So what is it that you would risk for your own future, for your family's future, that might take some sacrifice now in order to get to there. All right. Um, risk out, write down, three of these or more, and maybe two is just enough. But the exercise will help flush out what you really, really care about. Okay. Now, let's jump into this next exercise. This is a fun one. I'm going to get my coffee here. Okay. So this is a deep dive into tell me about your childhood. So we all have moments in our lives that shape us, they define us, and that they can propel us moving forward, and they can drive us consciously and they can drive us unconsciously. So I want you to go through this exercise so you have a story to share when you're networking or when you're interviewing with people that gives them a sense of who you are. Like, that person really cares about what they do. Let me um, let me share a story. So, a client of mine was stuck in his career and he was doing project management and he was really good at it, made really great money, but he wasn't fulfilled. And when we coached together and I got out of him what he really cared about, it was from his childhood. It was from a moment, that he cared for his younger brother. His younger brother had Down syndrome. He loved his younger brother, but his brothers passed on. And when we got down to what it was missing in his life, it was missing that he wanted to give back to his little brother again, but he couldn't. And he couldn't figure out why his career wasn't fulfilling, why his life wasn't as fulfilling as what he wanted. And what we uncovered was that he really cared about the special needs community. He really cared about making a difference with adults, with special needs. And then I asked him a powerful question. I said, have you ever thought about being a project manager and taking your skills and working in that industry? And it was like a light bulb moment for him, right? Now he has a story where he can say, I had a little brother and I really cared about him and he made a difference in my life. And that's why I want to make a difference in the community of these people, these other human beings. And I've got all these skills in project management that I use in a completely different industry, but they're the same skills, just a different way to look at them. And now he's got a powerful story that when he shares that with that community or someone interviewing in that industry, man, he's going to be remembered as the project manager who really loves and wants to make a difference and had a brother, that he was able to contribute to. And that's going to make him more memorable, right? For myself, my story, my childhood, my dad yelled at me, and not just once, but several times. And it wasn't anything like abuse or anything, but I never felt like I could speak up. I never felt like I could really share and express myself. And it wasn't until I got really clear on that was a moment in my childhood where I was stopped. That was a moment in my childhood where I didn't feel like I could be fully self-expressed. In my whole life, I've been the one who's been wanting to speak up and share some ideas or some stories or make people laugh, or help people. But I've let that I can't speak up because if I do, I'll get in trouble. And now I'm able to speak up. Now I'm able to go out there and tell a story and help other people, right? Um, and that makes a difference, when you're sharing your story with people, you can make your story real. Of like, this is why I care, because I don't want anybody else to have to go through life and not be able to speak up. I don't want anybody else to be able to, not give up on their dreams and hopes because they're unable to express themselves. They feel like they might get in trouble. And that's real for me. And I want you to go through this exercise and think about that thing from your life that maybe you felt held back from, and now you want to make a difference in other people's lives. What is that? Because there's passion and there's unexpressed um, expression, unexpressed expression that wants to come out of you and give back to other people so they don't have to go through it, right? So, what is that? And write that story down, whatever it is, all right? And then, how does that story define who you are? How does that story define who you are? And the next question is, how does or could that story help others? And really brainstorm inside of that. All right. So let this, if you think about a story and you swallow your throat, maybe your tears start to well up. Probably are in the right area. Let that story out. It probably should be expressed. Someone else needs to hear it. So that's it for Unit 3. I will see you in Unit 4. I'm going to stop the share. Oh, look, myself again. And see you in Unit 4. Bye.